Let's talk for a moment about Oxford. This is, as a mother yourself, you've been both publicly and also privately with the families and with the community. Give us a chance about your reflections. Talk about your reflections when it comes to Oxford and where we're at right now.
Well, I think as tough as the last 2 years have been, the last 2 weeks have been the hardest, because we've got families who are grieving the loss of their children. We've got families who are recovering from the injuries to their kids. We've got a whole community, every one of whom is grappling with just the horror that is every parent's worst nightmare. This is a uniquely American problem, and we owe it to our kids, to our educators, to our families, to our communities, to do everything we can to ensure that our kids are safe when they are at school. The families are grieving. I've spent a lot of time with them. There are no words to address or lighten the burden that they carry, and yet they need the space to grieve. And so I'm glad you asked the question, because I know they're being inundated by not necessarily local media, but by the national press. And I just wanted to take a minute to encourage people to give these families love and support, but also the opportunity to do what they need to take care of themselves. And none of us can imagine how difficult this is, but every one of us can do something to try to make sure this never happens again, and to support the community as they try to heal.
Bag searches, metal detectors, these have been thrown out there. Your thoughts on that?
I think one of the things that so many are quick to do is to go right off to their political corners and put out, a statement of where we're going to fix the problem with one issue. And that's the problem. That's not going to happen. What we have to do, what we owe it to the people of Oxford and to kids in our schools and to families across our state, is to have an honest conversation about what can we do. And so I haven't prejudged. All I have signaled is that I am eager to have that conversation with the legislature. Now, I can tell you, there's not one law that we can change that will fix the problem. This is a societal issue with lots of different pressure points, but I think we owe it to the people of our state to try to do what we can. And I'm eager to do that. And I'm not going to prejudge where it goes, because I want to have an honest conversation about what's doable.
Are metal detectors and searching bags, is that something that's on the table for you?
I think that ensuring that we secure the premises is important. I was at, the day after the shooting, I was in Pontiac at Spectrum. I visited with one of the victims of the shooting. I spoke to all of the nurses and doctors who were taking in the victims and their families and reuniting people and giving them hope and support. They have a dog that can sniff gunpowder. And they suggested perhaps that's a way that would be comforting, that we could keep people safe. I can't say that one thing will fix the issue, but what I can say is that I am absolutely an eager partner if the legislature is ready to move forward on some policy items that will make our schools safer. They'll find an eager partner in me.
What about firearms regulations? Is that something you're willing to talk about and address with the legislature as well?
Well, like I said, I'm not going to prejudge it, Roop. I know the makeup of our legislature, and the gun issues are something that we've talked a bit about in our state, but and people saw that you can carry in our Capitol, and that's not changed in a meaningful way. Like I said, I don't want to prejudge it, because my goal is not to talk about it, not to take a position, but to get something done that keeps our kids safe and gives our families confidence their kids are okay and that they can focus on learning, because that's what schools are supposed to be for.
Are some of those conversations already starting?
I would say, we've had an initial, but not in a meaningful, substantive way yet. We're 3 weeks out, right? Everyone is raw and saddened and grieving. I think that the conversation should be had, and the coming days and weeks are the time to have it.
2 years ago, you were known, some of your measures were called draconian. And now today, we don't hear or see you as often talking about the importance of these mask mandates, even pushing for a mask mandate. Why has that changed?
Well, I think in the beginning, right, this was a state of emergency. We didn't know the enemy. We didn't know how to stay safe. We didn't have vaccines. We were running out of PPE for our doctors and our nurses. Virus was running rampant. We had to use blunt tools to keep people safe. Studies have shown we saved thousands of lives in this state because of the work that we did. I'm proud of that work. We're in a very different place now. We're a year and a half in, almost 2 years in, right? And we have vaccines. We know that masks are the best way to stay safe. You can avail yourselves of these tools. They are free, they are easy to come by, and they make a difference. They have high efficacy. We have a chunk of our population that hasn't yet done that, and that's who's filling up our hospital beds. So if I sound frustrated, it's because I am. Like everyone, we're all raw. This has been a tough couple of years, but it is really the unvaccinated, people who could get vaccinated, who choose not to, that are filling up our hospital beds. And that is putting additional burden on the doctors and nurses who've been working themselves ragged for 2 years. It is coming at a cost to those of us who are vaccinated, because God forbid we have a car accident or a heart attack and need a bed in a hospital, and it's filled with unvaccinated COVID patients. It's endangering all of us. So the difference between a year and a half ago are those simple facts. We know our enemy, we know how to stay safe. 70% of us 16 and up have gotten vaccinated. That was an early goal, we achieved that. But when you still have a big part of your population that's not vaccinated, that's how the virus spreads, that's how the virus mutates, and that's how the virus lands people in hospital, and it's frustrating.
But Governor, if you talk to a doctor or a nurse in an ER anywhere in the state of Michigan today, they'll tell you not a heck of a lot has changed. They're still dealing with a shortage of beds. They're still dealing with an intensity. Albeit unvaccinated people, why not a mask mandate now when those hospitals are in the same situation as they were 2 years ago?
The mask mandate was really important in the early days when we didn't know how this virus transmitted and we didn't have vaccines. Now we do. The people that are going to wear masks are wearing masks. The people that are going to fight masks or fight getting vaccinated are not going to, no matter what kind of a mandate comes from the state. That's been shown over and over again. So the question is, what would that look like? And there's no easy answer. And as I talk to my colleagues, whether it's the governor of Minnesota or the governor of Illinois or Wisconsin, I can tell you, or Ohio, Republican governor, we're all grappling with very similar circumstances. What's happening in Michigan is not unique. Across the Midwest, we are seeing hospitals filling up. Across the Northeast, colder climates, this is happening. This is a virus that we sadly looks like we're going to have to figure out how to live with for a while. Every one of us wanted the end of 2021 to be done with COVID. That's not the case. We've got to be smart. Getting vaccinated still is the best way to stay safe and to keep others safe. And we're continue to encourage and try to educate people who haven't yet availed themselves of these great vaccines to get to use them.
You got massive pushback from what your measures were 2 years ago. Did that have any influence at all politically to say, you know what, maybe I got to take a step back?
No, Roop, I made hard decisions. I knew that my decisions could put me in jeopardy politically. I knew my decisions might put me in jeopardy physically and personally. Certainly there have been a lot of threats on my life. The fact of the matter is, we followed the science. At this point, though, we are in a very different place. And anyone who wants to get a vaccine can get one. You can throw on a mask anywhere you go and be smart. And I encourage people to do that.
What about schools? Leaving it up to school districts to make the decision about whether or not to have mask mandates. Is that something that you still stick with?
The thing about where we are with this virus is that, in the early days, everyone said we want to make decisions at the local level, right? But we knew it was important as a state to set the standard at the state level, as we saw all across the country. Now that we are trying to keep our kids in school, it was important to let the community be a part of that conversation. We have a lot of information about this virus that we didn't have a year and a half ago. Enforcement has to happen at the local level. We've seen local level enforcement decide not to move forward. So empowering at the local level was something that was a thoughtful decision. The vast majority of districts embraced a mask mandate. I congratulate them and encourage the others who haven't to do that, because that's the smartest way to keep kids safe and keep them in school. But at this point in time, all kids are eligible to get vaccinated, school-age kids. And a lot of parents haven't yet done that. And I get it. Like, there are a lot of great parents out there who've got legitimate questions. And I get it. As a parent, I totally understand. But we encourage people to have that conversation with their pediatricians or their doctors, someone they trust, who is steeped in the science and can answer their questions, because it is a personal decision. We encourage people to get their questions answered and to get their kids vaccinated.
If the numbers go up for COVID this winter, does Governor Whitmer change the way she's looking at these mandates?
At this juncture, I don't foresee that. The only caveat being, because there are so many people unvaccinated, that this virus mutates again in a way that gets past the vaccine safety, that's the only circumstance I can imagine us having that conversation. But I'm hopeful that it doesn't come to that, and the more people that get vaccinated and stay smart and mask up, the less likely we'll ever have to have that conversation.
Right now, you're in Detroit, but out in Lansing, there's a protest happening with workers from Toledo who are urging you to reconsider your stance when it comes to the Enbridge pipeline. A little bit about Line 5. Why are you so against that?
So, what workers in Toledo, what their opinions are, they're entitled to that. But the fact of the matter is, Michigan bears 100% of the risk of these pipelines. These are two pipelines that were supposed to be there for 50 years. It's now going on 70. They've been hit by anchor strikes. It is a ticking time bomb. And if an anchor rips through one or both of these pipelines, it will be devastating to water that supplies drinking water for millions, jobs, whether it's in tourism, agriculture. This is about our economy. This is about our safety. This is about our drinking water. This is a Canadian company that has not always been forthcoming. They're responsible for the largest inland oil spill in Kalamazoo, Michigan. So we have a duty to do everything we can to protect the Great Lakes. That's a duty I take very seriously. I dismissed the lawsuit that we had in federal court. There is a lawsuit proceeding, and I'm hopeful that we can get those pipelines out. But we're also moving forward and executing the permits around the tunnel. That's something we haven't stood in the way of. We abide by the court decision. We want to move forward. We want to protect the water, protect the people.
What about the jobs, protecting the jobs that go along with the Enbridge, the whole project with Line 5? So many people will be losing their jobs because of that.
Well, that's not accurate. I mean, I know that that's what the Canadian oil company will try to tell people. The fact of the matter is, we are rebuilding infrastructure across the state of Michigan. We have lots of jobs we need to fill. We need more people to go into the incredible high-skill work of building pipes. Pipes bring our water to our houses. We're rebuilding water infrastructure. So the job thing, I think, is really not as compelling as the question of what happens if one of these pipelines, these old pipelines, bursts. It would be devastating, and we would never fully be able to recover and clean up this most precious resource. 20% of the world's fresh water is in and around the Great Lakes. 20% of the world's fresh water. There are a lot of Michiganders who don't even appreciate what a huge deal our lakes are. We got to protect them. We got to protect the people of this state.
In 20 seconds or 30 seconds, you mentioned and alluded to the fact that there was these awful things that happened to you and your family. How are you doing now?
You know what? I think that one of the worst things to kind of develop over the last few years is that people can't have robust debates without making personal threats. And that's not about me. This is about whether they're directed at Dr. Anthony Fauci, or they're directed at our Secretary of State, or at a local mayor who's just trying to keep people safe with a mask mandate. In America, we settle our differences at the ballot box. And I have always appreciated that as a strength of our nation, this tendency to go and attack people personally, to attack them physically, to threaten to take their lives. It's anti-American, it's dangerous, and I have been really vocal about turning the heat down. We got real issues we got to solve. We're never going to solve them if we can't even talk to one another, much less sit at a table and try to work through and find a solution to whether it's keeping our kids in school, whether it is improving outcomes or enhancing our skill set or drawing investment into Michigan. A lot of good stuff happening. And I think that's where we need to focus our energy and our time.
Good to see you not on Zoom and in person. Thanks, Governor. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Roop. Good to be with you.